tried to make us free.
Our second reading is from You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train by Howard Zinn. To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It is based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world in a different direction. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of presents. And to live now, as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory.
Each service, we have an opportunity to give thanks for the blessings we have received in our lives and in our community. Our offering supports our work and outreach as a growing, powerful community that refuses to be silenced. We find strength in our collective action and shared purpose, knowing we are not alone. We are nurtured by our common capital, empathy, actions, and hope. Here we practice the small acts of showing up, talking to one another, contributing our gifts, financial and otherwise, and committing to build a better future together. Thank you for giving generously to sustain this community as it meets the challenges of this time in history. You can submit your offering electronically via the link in the chat or mail it to All Souls at the address provided.
Working as a chaplain in the hospital, there are phrases we learn to look out for, especially in the critical care unit. Phrases such as, "I believe in miracles," and "he's a fighter." In an isolated instance, when it's your loved one, your story, your individual life, these phrases can feel natural, honest, true, hopeful. When you work in the unit month after month, these phrases are not special anymore. They're often indicators of a situation that's about to be more difficult than it already is, because families start blaming themselves for whatever outcome occurs. Their hope and their regard for their loved one is measured by whether or not their loved one makes it. And that's a big problem, because there are so many things that happen in life that we can't control. And the moment we start taking ownership of stuff that isn't ours, we can break under that load. So I titled this sermon, Hope Without the Sugarcoat, because I wanted to begin by naming that hope doesn't universally make things better. Sometimes hope prolongs suffering. Sometimes one person's hope is incompatible with another person's hope. I've sat with families where one person hopes the medical staff will do everything possible, which is quite a lot these days, to delay the loss of their loved one, while another person just hopes that they won't suffer for long. Both hopes are born of love, but they pull in opposite directions and make an already painful moment even more charged. And this isn't just about hospitals. We do this in ordinary life, too. One person hopes a relationship will improve, while another person hopes for them that they have the courage to leave. Or at Christmas time, someone going through something heavy puts on their brightest smile because that's the hopeful story that they believe they're supposed to perform. Sometimes hope feeds delusion, dissociation. Sometimes it keeps people from behaving in ways that could change situations for the better. And other times, hope is the thing that makes the biggest difference in dire situations. In a previous, what I will call the psychological Bible of diagnostic and mental health conditions, hopelessness was considered to be a symptom of trauma. The sciencey name they gave it was a foreshortened sense of the future. And what we have found over many years of research treating trauma is that instilling a sense of hope for recovery makes a significant difference in whether or not a person engages in the treatment and sees it through to its successful end. And this is true for other kinds of medical issues as well. For example, placebo-controlled pain studies consistently show that when people expect pain relief, the brain releases endogenous opioids, actual physical chemicals that reduce pain without medication. This isn't an in your head, I perceived things better so I feel better situation. It happens physically in the body. So having hope can physically reduce pain. And even outside medical settings, we see versions of this. Teachers will tell you that a student who believes they're capable engages differently than one who's certain they'll fail. Physical therapists know that recovery rates improve dramatically when patients believe improvement is possible enough to do the exercises. Not because hope magically heals them, but because it keeps them participating in the process that does. So hope is indeed a powerful thing in any instance, and it's worth paying attention to. Especially now, when so many of us are carrying more than we let on. December can put us in a positive vibes only cultural pressure cooker. We're supposed to be festive, grateful, put together, even when we're tired, or grieving, or unsure. And in this community, at the moment, we're navigating several layers at once. The weight of decision-making about our building, the upcoming funeral of someone we have loved, and the quiet personal things each of us holds but may not name out loud. And yet, the Unitarian Universalist theme for this month is choosing hope. And I wanted to take that seriously when I wrote this reflection, and to be honest, the more I sat with it, the more I realized how complicated choosing hope really feels right now. And so with all these tangled versions of hope in mind, the helpful ones, the harmful ones, the seasonal pressure to perform hope, how could I not think of Emily Dickinson? And I have to admit that, particularly with this poem, I have a little bit of an eye roll for it because it's popular. You see it everywhere, and it's always the first line, hope is the thing with feathers, and then not the rest. It's what the larger public knows Emily Dickinson for. This tiny, cheerful bird perched in the soul makes great for a mug or a pillowcase. But if you've read much of her work, you know that this poem is an outlier. Dickinson lived with despair, uncertainty, grief, isolation, deep, deep loneliness. She was not writing greeting card poetry. And I think that helps us understand and resonate with the poem a little more. Most of Dickinson's poems wrestle with doubt, with endings, with the limits of language and the limits of God. Her writing is full of storms and earthquakes and deep interior winters. So when someone like Dickinson talks of hope, she's not doing it lightly. She's not selling positivity. She's describing something she encountered despite it all. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. Isn't Dickinson describing some naive optimism? She's describing the unexpected, something that showed up uninvited, even on the days when she felt frozen or lost or shattered. And considering it from that angle makes that last line even more potent. Never in extremity, it asked a crumb of me. Hope appeared precisely when she had no strength left to summon it. So I don't think Dickinson offers us a performed hope. She was naming a kind of hope that can coexist with despair, a hope that startles us by its presence, not one we produce on command. And that kind of hope feels much more honest to me in December, when many of us are carrying grief or uncertainty, and when hope, if it comes at all, probably comes in a quieter register. Makes me think of the first winter of the pandemic. I don't know where you were at that time. I was in Quincy, in an apartment. We moved to Massachusetts in August of 2020 when they still had that you need to stay away from people for 2 weeks. So we came to a new place and didn't hardly know anyone at all and couldn't get to know anyone at all. And then there was the winter. COVID kept us from our families. We didn't get to have the normal holidays. And we were improvising all these different ways to feel connected. At one point, I was involved in 3 different Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, just so that I could be with other people on Zoom. And then that spring, I woke up one morning, light streaming in the window, and I heard the sound of robins for the first time since that icy winter. And something in me shifted. I felt lighter. The world got bigger. The idea of being able to see people outside again, safely in warmer weather, it opened up a whole world, not only just for me to be able to leave the home without billions of layers, but also I could be with people. I wasn't trying to summon that hope that morning. I just woke up. That's what hope does. It arrives quietly, without fanfare, without asking anything of us. It shows up and reminds us of possibilities we couldn't have imagined the day before. And that moment didn't erase the winter. Hearing the robins didn't fix anything. It just reminded me that hope isn't always something I can summon on command. Sometimes I hear the bird. Sometimes I don't. And just because I can't hear the bird on a given day doesn't mean that the thing with feathers isn't singing. It might be perched in someone else's soul that day. Someone else might be able to hear that when I can't. And that's one of the quiet gifts of community. We don't all have to feel hopeful all the time. We don't all have to feel hopeful at the same time. We don't all have to be strong at the same time. Hope moves around the room, it migrates, and when it settles on someone else for a while, their hope can carry us, the same way ours may carry them when their winter comes. Sometimes I think we treat hope like a personal achievement. Like if we're spiritually mature enough, we'll have a constant supply of it. But that's not how hope works. That's not the thing with feathers. Hope comes and goes, like weather, like birds. And part of what a healthy community does is it makes space for all of that. And I know that today this congregation is carrying a lot at once. Some people here are genuinely hopeful about the future today, relieved at the possibility of change, imagining new possibilities unfolding. Others may not be feeling hopeful at all. Some of us may be anxious. Many of us are grieving. A lot of us, I bet, are exhausted. And most of us are holding a mix of it all without really knowing what to call it. And layered on top of that is this very specific grief of Marge, whose history is woven into the history of this church, both the building and the community. And her absence is going to echo through these halls for a long time. So in a moment like this, hope is going to show up in different people at different times. Some will hear that bird today, some won't. And that's normal. That's human. That's community. But if hope is a thing with feathers, that we sometimes hear singing and sometimes don't, what does it mean to choose it? What does it mean to choose hope? Because you can't choose your feelings. Maybe hope operates in more ways than just feeling. What about hope as a practice? Not something we feel, but something we do. Not an emotion, but a way of responding to the world as it actually is. We don't choose whether hope visits us, but we do choose whether we stay engaged when it does, and whether we act in ways that make space for it to land, even if it hasn't arrived yet. Earlier this morning, we heard the words of Howard Zinn that the future is an infinite succession of presents. He wasn't talking about optimism or feelings or performance. He was talking about practice, about how the future is shaped by how we live in the moment, even when we don't feel hopeful about where things are going. So maybe choosing hope doesn't mean choosing how we feel. Maybe it means choosing how we show up. That's the sense in which choosing hope, I think, becomes accessible. Not a performance, not a feeling, just a posture. Choosing engagement over withdrawal. Different hopes don't signal different levels of love. They usually reflect different histories, different losses, different experiences of what our time together in this place has meant to us. If hope was only about outcomes, then differing hopes would put us at odds with one another. But if hope is a practice, then the question isn't, are we hoping for the same thing? The question becomes, can we practice hope together even when we want different things? And that's what I want to think about, hope as practice, hope as doing a bunch of ordinary, unglamorous things, like people staying in difficult conversations instead of avoiding them, like communities telling the truth about their limits and still asking what might be possible next, about choosing honesty over denial, presence over fantasy, care over collapse. In this community, it has looked like people facing a failing roof and limited resources and refusing to pretend otherwise, and then doing the slow work of documentation, advocacy, and persistence to preserve something that mattered to them. Marge led the way on that. Only she could tell us if she felt hopeful every moment of that process. But what we know now is that she stayed engaged with that moment in time and acted in ways that kept the future open. None of this guarantees outcomes. None of it requires us to feel hopeful, but it keeps us in relationship with each other, with the moment, with whatever comes next. So some days you will hear the thing with feathers. Some days you might not. And some days someone else in the room will hear it for you, and that is enough. Hope that asks nothing of us except our willingness to stay present might be the most honest hope we have right now. So what does that look like when we leave this room or do different things in this room? It doesn't mean convincing ourselves that things are going to turn out fine. It doesn't mean borrowing someone else's optimism. It doesn't mean pretending we're okay when we're not. It means riding those endogenous opioids when your system offers them. And then choosing a hopeful posture regardless. And that posture can be very simple. Here are a few ways I can think of practicing hope without the sugarcoat. First, tell the truth about the moment you're in. Not the polished version, not the spiritually acceptable version, not the bright, shiny tinsel version, the real one. Hope doesn't grow in denial. It grows in honesty. If you're hopeful, you can say that. If you're not hopeful, you can say that too. Naming reality is not a failure of hope. It's the ground hope stands on. Second, stay in one conversation you'd rather avoid. Not every conversation, just one. The one where you're tempted to withdraw, disengage, or simplify the story. Staying in the room, listening without rushing to persuade, is a hopeful act, even if nothing gets resolved right away. Third, take one small action that keeps the future open. Doesn't need to be a grand gesture or a heroic sacrifice. It can just be something that says, I'm still here. Send an email. Show up to a meeting. Ask a curious question instead of making a statement. Care for something fragile, a relationship, a project, yourself, without needing to know how it's going to turn out. None of these require a feeling of hope. They just require engagement. And that's what choosing hope looks like in a moment like this. Not choosing a feeling, but choosing presence, choosing honesty, choosing to keep showing up to the life we're actually living. Because some days you will hear the bird, and some days you won't. But if we keep choosing that posture that makes room for truth and connection, we make it possible for hope when it does arrive to have somewhere to land. Let's stand together for our closing hymn.
There is
the candle dims, the wax almost spent, the light turns amber like a sunset. Still it provides light. Still it provides heat. Still it can kindle a new flame and pass its glow on and contribute to new illumination. When sunsets turn to new days, when seasons transform all, when the candle dims, all is not lost. Hope continues, uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost. Though we extinguish this flame, we carry with us the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, now held within our hearts until we meet again.
We offer our gratitude for Emily this morning. Thank you for joining us, and it was very nice. Thank you. Yeah. We also want to acknowledge the other people who came together to create today's service, our music director, our choir members, the tech team, our service associate, usher and greeter, coffee hour organizers, Sunday service committee members, the person who makes sure the candles are both lit and extinguished, all of you who are participants in person or online. If you would like to take a more active role in creating or supporting our Sunday services, please reach out to Sarah Elstrom. Our upcoming events include, following today's service, a coffee hour, and then please stay for a question and answer session and update from the Board of Trustees from 12 to 1. A celebration of life service in memory of Marge Kearns will be held today at 3 o'clock here and also on Zoom. Refreshments will be provided after the service. 2 Zoom meetings are scheduled for this Wednesday, December 17th. A connection circle at 2:30 to 4 o'clock and Board of Trustees meeting at 6:30. Join us at our annual Christmas Eve candlelight service on Wednesday, December 24th at 6 p.m. Cookies and apple cider follow. There are donation opportunities. Today and next Sunday, Sarah Elstrom is collecting new and gently used hats, mittens, and gloves in Marge's memory to give to people who are unhoused. And then there's a coat collection. There's a collection box in the foyer. Donations are accepted through January 10th. And then there's this other event, this other opportunity, support for the Haitian family. We've already delivered diapers, baby formula to our family in Haiti, family from Haiti. Last week we collected over $100 for needed items. You can donate today toward the cost of other items which have already been purchased. A support team for the family is being formed. See Mary for more information. If you're attending on Zoom, please stay online for a virtual social hour, or if you're